And we're live. It is Monday, August the 25th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And I have a spy story for you all, a caper that you might say would warrant a John le Carré novel if John le Carré wrote novels about inane pranks outside of embassies. But he doesn't. But if he did, surely he would write just as George Smiley and had Carla to do battle with over a generation. Surely my battle with Umbrella Man
Mm,
would be worthy of a Le Carre novel. And folks,
100%.
as Smiley wins the battle with Carla at the end of Smiley's People, I won the battle with Umbrella Man yesterday, and it
Whoa.
was final. My defeat of Umbrella Man was total, and I want to tell you the story. It was
Oh,
moving. We had a little reconciliation. Um, I was I went over to the sunflower garden, and And by the way, a full photo essay of this is going to appear later this morning on Dogshirt Daily. But I wanted you, the audience, the live audience, to hear the story first because I'm so proud of it. Um, I went over to the sunflower garden yesterday with 8 kitschy glow in the dark sunflowers. And the theory was that the estimable Connor O'Brien had bought a lovely flagpole with a Ukrainian flag, and we'd put the Ukrainian flag in the garden right at the front to be maximally provocative to the Russians, and we were going to surround it with these solar powered uh, sunflower lights, which had been shipped to me all the way from Guangzhou. And they were going to just sit there, and that way the sunflowers could annoy the Russians day or night. And remember,
mm,
folks, for those who don't know, sunflowers are the symbol of Ukraine, and Russian diplomats hate sunflowers. And so we draw sunflowers, we leave sunflowers for them on the stoop of the embassy, and of course, we grow sunflowers in a vacant lot across the street. And the Russians have been known, or somebody has been known, and I've always suspected that Umbrella Man might be playing a role in this, to periodically destroy the sunflowers. Well, for those of you who don't remember Umbrella Man is the guy who lives next door to the Russian embassy who once charged across the street while I was projecting with 2 umbrellas and tried to block the projections with the umbrellas. Hilarity ensued. It's all on video. We set it to music. It was good fun. Um, I have run into Umbrella Man a few times, and he has always denied having anything to do with that incident. He once told me he doesn't own any umbrellas. And when I asked him, hey, I'm the guy with the projector, you're the guy with the umbrella, right? He would look at me quizzically and say, I don't own any umbrellas, or not that I recall. So it was kind of a weird thing. We had this weird relationship. He's got a very large dog whom he sometimes walks near the sunflowers. And I am there yesterday scouting out the sunflower garden, waiting for my photographer to show up and take pictures of me putting the sunflower lights in, when all of a sudden a familiar seeming, very large dog charges out of the sunflower patch and comes over to me. And this is a menacing looking dog. I think it's
mm.
a Rottweiler of some kind. But he was very friendly, and there was something about him that seemed familiar. But the main thing that was confusing was that the dog was in the sunflowers. Well, a little bit of investigation found that the dog was not an abandoned dog, but a uh, but his person was not just in the sunflowers, but lying amidst the sunflowers, crushing several of them. And I go over and I'm taking pictures the whole time because I want evidence of this. So a photo essay will of Umbrella Man crushing sunflowers will appear on Dog Shirt Daily today. And there he was, Umbrella Man, lying amidst the sunflowers, a whole bunch of which were crushed, and a damage assessment um, with video and evidence of the crushed sunflowers will appear on Dog Shirt Daily. And I yelled at him and dragged him out of the thing, um, and uh, and having been caught red-handed destroying sunflowers, Umbrella Man did an amazing thing, which is he confessed. And he confessed, he said he was not trying to destroy sunflowers. He was just enjoying the sunflower garden and he was apologetic about the damage. You can decide what you think of that explanation. But he also copped to being Umbrella Man for the first time, and he said he has no relationship with the Russians. He's an air conditioning repair guy from New Jersey. He did not appear to have a Russian accent. And he said he just got really emotional that night and came over, but he acknowledged that he'd done it, and and we had a long talk. And um, he did promise he would not damage the sunflowers again. And I did not, call the cops or anything. But we had a long talk, and he said he just got very emotional that night, and we were trying to make to rile people's emotions, and it worked in his case.
Is he
Said he
pro-Russian? Was he sympathetic to Russia?
Well, it's unclear. He asked why I cared about it, and he very much seemed to object to being involved. And I
Like
don't
the U.S.
really.
being involved?
He wasn't especially coherent about his own
Hmm.
motivations or um, why he did what he did. He just said he was kind of overcome by emotion in the moment, and he apologized again for damaging the sunflowers. And then and again, he said that was not my intention. Um, and he expressed resentment that I had roped off the sunflowers without acknowledging that it was to protect them from people like him doing precisely the sort of thing he was doing. And I don't know, we talked for probably 15 or 20 minutes before he went back across the street to his house next to the embassy, or his apartment building, which he swears is a coincidence, and that he has no relationship with the embassy. And I don't know if he was drunk or if he was just maliciously destroying sunflowers, or if he was just lying in the sunflower garden, um, and the sunflower damage was, as he said, incidental and unintentional. I
Hmm.
leave that to all of you to to decide for yourselves. He does not have a Russian accent,
Neither
and
did Carrie Russell and the Americans.
yeah, I mean, he could be. But the key piece of evidence, the key thing that happened was, it was maybe like a Bill Hayden minimalist confession, but it was a confession that this is Umbrella Man, which was evident from the photographic evidence anyway. And and he was caught live destroying sunflowers with whatever, thus validating my thesis of many years that Carla across the street in the embassy sends people like Mike across to not Mike Feinberg, Mike the umbrella man, um, uh, for so he calls himself, across to destroy sunflowers. So all in all, look, you got breaking news on Dogshirt TV on Friday in the form of the Bolton raid, and today you have breaking Umbrella Man news. We're becoming a major news site here. Full
And the
details,
only one with cacti.
the only one with cacti. And full details are going to be on Dogshirt Daily this morning. It's just, uh, you know, until then, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's a gorgeous day in Washington. It is going to be a great frickin' day. And I think the cactuses do have something to tell you all.
We're watching Dog Shirt TV, a forking revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dogshirt TV, and it is a forking revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that on Friday we can be stalking John Bolton and almost get in trouble with the Montgomery County Police for trespassing and for behaving in a frankly creepy fashion outside the house of the former national security advisor, only to then be vindicated by the arrival of the FBI to raid that same house. And then on Sunday, we can have a full-fledged Le Carré-like encounter with a mysterious embassy operative from the Russian
I'm
Federation.
still not satisfied by his story, but
I'm not satisfied by his story either, but it's incrementally where we are. Hey, we got a confession from him. I mean, come
of
on.
sorts,
Of sorts. Well,
yeah.
he
Again, I'm
acknowledged.
not convinced that he's just ordinary HVAC guy from New Jersey. Although
I'm
people from
not
New
either.
Jersey are shady as shit. So
I do want to point out that his dog, which he once told me is a Serbian Rottweiler, is named Tito. And that is interesting to me because, of course, Tito was the dictator of Yugoslavia, communist dictator of
mhm.
Yugoslavia, but he was Croatian,
And
not
then
Serbian.
It's also the
um,
name of a premier brand of vodka, which Russians are known to enjoy as a
see,
general
I just
matter.
think it's improbable that like an HVAC dude from New Jersey
Would get all
would
emotional
have a
about.
would make all the like, oh, I'm gonna get a Serbian Rottweiler and name it Tito.
Look,
I
as
mean,
they say on our sister network, Fox News, I report, you decide. And another one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that we can tell you a completely inane, weird ass Washington story like this, and then transition to two recently former officials at two different intelligence agencies talking about the purges at their agencies and experience no cognitive dissonance about it because that is what we do. All of which is a 13-minute long way of saying that we are not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed to have capers with witting or unwitting Russian co-optees in front of the embassy in Washington, and a reminder that if you want a real conversation about John Le Carre, uh, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Bill Hayden, Kim Philby, Ben McIntyre, join us this evening for the Make America Read Again inaugural book club. It will be at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock Eastern Time. For all you West Coasters, you know exactly where to find us. Um, if you are not a paid subscriber, tough shit.
that was rude. That was really rude.
Okay, Holly, you said you wanted to rant today. So
I do.
the
I have a lot of
floor
things.
is
First of all,
open.
I've had quite the week. As you know, my book launched on Tuesday, and I went to Michigan and I had an event with the estimable Kristen Dumais, which was amazing. And then I came home and tragically got the news of a friend's very untimely death in a very freak accident. So it's been like, and then I also got the news of what I'm going to rant about here, which is the new list of, I think they were all agency, some of them may be DNI, of people that lost their security clearances. And at first, when I saw the news, I just thought that these were more former officials that actually have long not had most of them. If you're not, you don't keep your security clearances like forever. Yael, our friend Yael, who's been on this show, she is on the list, and she has not had. She left in 20.
And they misspelled her name, by the way.
They misspelled her
By
name.
the way, can I just say about that? When you're going to insult somebody by, putting them on a sanctions list, as in my case, or stripping them of their security clearance, which they don't have, as in Yael's case, have the decency to spell their name right.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
fuck
didn't.
you.
It seems like they just kind of. I mean, they alphabetize the names by first name, which is very bizarre. But so that's why she was last.
The Russians
but,
spelled my name wrong when they put me on their
yeah, but
sanctions
they're
list.
Russians.
But
you
that
know?
fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
Get my name right. Yael Eisenstate?
Yeah.
Really DNI?
Anyway,
She can't even spell her name right?
but more to the point, she has not had a security clearance since I believe 2016 when she left the government. And she is not, she was not, no offense to her, but she was not particularly high ranking or important. She happened to be working in Joe Biden's office on a rotation, as many, government officials do. I mean, that's where they get a lot of their staffers, these important people. They're government workers on rotation. And then, so I think in her case, it was just for all of her, private sector work, quite frankly. She's worked for Facebook. She pissed off Mark Zuckerberg by being a whistleblower. And she worked for the ADL, and she pissed off Elon Musk for complaining about his platform becoming a Nazi site. And there's no reason to put her on such a list except to say that, people that they know don't like her. Although I would think that they don't like Elon anymore, that would maybe, if he doesn't like her, that would maybe redound to her benefit. But anyway, so it just makes no sense. But so that's what I thought it was when I first saw it, and I just did an eye roll. But then on second glance, and then talking to friends, these were current officials. These included current officials who literally went home, I think Tuesday, and then were barred at the door on Wednesday and could not even come back in. And these were people who just happened to be have jobs on issues that are bugaboos for the administration. That's it. And some of them as random as one of the people was the EA, like not even a chief of staff, like was the executive assistant for Clapper. And again, this is a rotational assignment. It is no, like, it doesn't mean you're like a Clapper acolyte or like you just live to serve Jim Clapper for the rest of your life. It means that you were assigned to do this job for a time. I know I have had friends who have been AEAs for people that they cannot stand. So it's just so, and then people that are, and then the other thing is, none of these people, just generally speaking, if you reach a certain level in the agency, like people who are rabble rousers or troublemakers or like at all like indiscreet in their opinions or political, those people don't read. That's why I left. Okay. I am not that. I'm the type that would, never reach those positions. The people that reach those positions are like boy and girl scouts. You know what I'm saying? Like they are, with few exceptions, they are like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, toe the line. Annoyingly so. I've had friends who I started out friends with them and I could be honest, and then they reach a certain level and it's like, I am now, part of the system and now I will never give you my real opinion ever again. So like, that's the kind of people. These are not people that are troublemakers in any respect. So people are very shocked by this. The agency, after the initial just onslaught of like, firing probationary people, which we didn't have a lot of probationary people fired, but there was a lot of uncertainty at the beginning in the Doge time about there was a lot of like tumult. But then things kind of settled down and people, I wouldn't say things were normal, but people felt okay about, going to work and things settled. Okay. But then last week, this has really thrown people for a loop. And it is cast a real pall. This combined with the head of DIA being dismissed and earlier people targeted for the assessment of the Iran attack damage. Okay, that was the DIA was the leaked assessment on like saying that the nuclear reactor that it wasn't destroyed, it only set them back like a few months or something. So,
and Holly, sorry to interject, but
Yeah.
let's also not forget the analysts who were dismissed for
Right.
the assessment that the cartels were not, in fact, state-sponsored,
That's true
and that
too.
there was
Yeah.
not country, nation-state sponsorship
The
of
Venezuela.
illegal migrants. Yeah,
Correct. That was a little further back. So it's not like nothing has happened this whole time. There have been episodes like this, which is all very bad. But yeah, again, people had felt like things had kind of settled. And so this has really thrown people for a loop and really cast a pall on things. I just can't tell you. Intelligence analysis is, it's drilled into you from day one. Like you speak truth to power. Like you give your honest assessment and you do not worry about what the higher ups and the policymakers think or if you piss them off. And and I've gotten feedback on my products before of just the policymaker, the principal, read your assessment and just like literally went into a rage. Like it makes people mad sometimes. They have their policy, and policy, by the way, is incredibly hard. And I'm super sympathetic to that. And so when an intelligence analyst comes along and like basically shits on like this policy, basically gives them information indicating like this policy isn't working. This policy is, causing problems for the US or not working or is ill-advised. They don't like that, because they've worked it all out with all of the different stakeholders and they think they have and they don't like it. And so, you're
And also because sometimes there aren't good options and there are no policies.
In fact, there are never good. There are very rarely good options.
That is not the exception. That's
Yes,
the rule.
that is usually the case. In fact, that's why Ukraine is that's why we should be going all in on Ukraine. Because it's like the one clear foreign policy case where it's like very clear win. It's like win.
Morality aligns with strategic interest,
right.
And there are tactical things you can do that are going to be effective.
There's a decent, not perfect, but a decent government. The people support the cause. Like we're not going in there against the will of the majority of the population. Like it's like the perfect, like it's a no-brainer situation. And so that's why it's ridiculous but that's another whole tangent. So anyway, I've talked to friends and I was like, I don't know how you do intelligence and basically their intelligence analysis is kind of dead in a way if there is retaliation for that analysis. How can you even do because the whole definition and principle behind intelligence analysis is that you give your unvarnished opinion on the facts, on the merits, on the substance, and you stay apart from the political imperatives. That's not, our job, or even the policy imperatives, apart from politics. We're not even supposed to worry about the policy imperatives. And, even if it's bipartisan, that's not something that we are supposed to deal with. And there's I don't know if this still exists, but when I was there's an ombudsman for politicization. You're supposed to report any indication that even an editor of your product is like trying to tone down your analysis because of some external pressure. Like, I can't imagine what that person does if they exist anymore, because the whole idea of politicization is so out the window. So,
well, like
yeah.
the word weaponization, it now means the opposite of what it used to mean.
Yeah, so people are really shocked this week. I will say it seems like more than previous rounds of things. It seemed to be, and this is CIA officers, not just DNI. Like the NIC, it belongs to the DNI. The previous dismissals were kind of the NIC. This is CIA. I will say also that I think it's an indication of some, sort of power struggle between Gabbard and Ratcliffe. What I've heard is that Ratcliffe, although, no angel by any estimation, but that he has tried to insulate the agency a bit. Certainly in the reduction of workforces, now it's pretty much being done in a humane way, from what I can tell. Like, they're offering early retirement, and they're actually creating an exit ramp for a sector of employees that honestly needs to go, because there's a huge bubble at that level and there's not enough positions. So we need to off ramp people like me who are GS-15s, maybe, and there's sort of middle management or senior analysts. So that's if you're going to reduce the workforce, that's the level that you need to go. And so he's kind of done that. And anyway, people are seeing this as kind of a power struggle between the two of them. I
Mike,
think
how does the FBI fit into this? Is one thing that the Bureau doesn't seem to have is a whole, like, it's being attacked for, like, sort of turned into a street cop agency.
Yes.
It's being it's being deployed on a whole bunch of things that are irrational to deploy the FBI. But I don't think we've seen, at least publicly, the dismissals and firings to be about analytic differences.
So not to the extent we've been talking about with respect to the rest of the IC, but still to an extent that is having a measurable impact on the organization and the people involved. And it's not... What happened is you had a lot of people who were involved in Russia investigations, the various Jack Smith efforts, and the entire countering foreign influence apparatus, who resigned on or about January 17th, the Friday before the inauguration. To use terminology that Stephen Miller or Donald Trump would love, they sort of self-deported. They read the writing on the wall, and they got out with their retirements and pensions in some cases, just with their pride in others, relatively unscathed.
And are we talking about 5 people, 10 people, 100 people? What's the ballpark?
I mean, within my social circle alone, I'm aware of about a half dozen. I'm sure there are more. Anybody who could did. And any of my friends who worked on the issues that I just enumerated, who were eligible for retirement, took it the last week of the Biden administration. There are a lot of individuals, largely at the GS 13 and below line agent and line analyst level, who didn't have that option and are still there. And I can tell you, many of them are living in fear. And I know that sounds overly dramatic. It's not. There is a very real concern that what happened 2 weeks ago to a number of agents is going to happen to them as well, which is to say you just get fired.
And is this about, as in, you know, what cases you worked on, or is it about, as Holly's describing, analytic differences?
No,
Or
this is solely a revenge tour based on past work. And I think there's
The other stuff too. It's like people who worked on pet issues from the past, but then it carries over into the recent, like the Venezuela thing, and then
Yep.
so
Right.
the two combined really casts a pall on people. Like, what are you going to work on? How can you you got to think ahead. Like, what's going to be the next like angering issue? It could be anything.
There's no guarantee that the issue you pick today that is viewed favorably by the administration is still going to be seen in that light a week from now. Everybody, and this is a debate I got into with quite a few senior executives at the Bureau in my final months, is everybody is of the opinion, well, we could take the gloves off with respect to China. That's a safe issue for us to work on. And
Yeah, just ask TikTok.
Yeah, it's a safe issue until one of the conditions for a new trade deal is that we stand down certain operations. Like, anybody
Right,
who
or
thinks
or
there's
until somebody pays 15% in order to avoid it's a national security concern that you sell certain chips to China unless you pay 15%, right?
exactly. It's
Or you buy a bunch of Trump meme coin or something.
or like maybe you're a company that makes products China very much wants, and we'll just nationalize 10% of your shares. So there is no safety in choosing a supposedly safe issue. There's just not. I'm in a weird spot. There is not a day that goes by that I do not miss walking into my old field office. It's still like a sort of wound that hasn't healed. But I'm so glad simultaneously that I'm not there on a daily basis, if that makes sense. I still talk to a lot of people in my organization and at Holly's old employer, and like, none of them are happy. None of them feel like they're protecting the country anymore. None of them have a sense of mission. They're just
trying to get through the day. You know?
Yeah.
And how much selection bias is there? I mean, if I were a person at the Bureau or the agency that was thrilled by what's going on, I wouldn't be talking to the Mike Feinbergs or Holly Berkley Fletchers of the world. I mean, Mike is out there hanging out with, Nicole Wallace and Ben Wittes and doing, going on the bulwark. And Holly makes, these videos, she's like, and is anti-Christian. So, is how representative is the sample of people who talks to you guys?
Holly, you go first.
I mean, so I would say among the analytic, which is obviously most of my contacts, they're not. There's few MAGAs, but I have a friend who's a MAGA, and we don't talk explicitly. Who's an analyst? We don't talk explicitly about politics, but I gather that I don't think he's happy. I don't think he should have anticipated this disruption, but I don't think that he necessarily did. Like, I don't know that was what he was thinking. Again, we avoid overt discussion of politics. Now, I do think, I know from the first time around, because I worked with a lot of, obviously the analysts and the ops people work closely together. And there are more sympathetic people to authoritarianism for sure on the op side, who at least the first time around saw some, positives for their work is in certain areas, So they were, for instance, I know people who were super excited by all the talk about bringing torture back.
Which is weird because in the FBI, we were generally horrified at that.
No, there were people in the CIA who were they loved all that stuff and they thought that it was valuable. I don't think it was valuable at all, but I'm not a counterterrorism person. So, but obviously it was morally wrong and reprehensible. But so
also as an interrogation method, like anybody who has studied interrogation extensively, including cultural specific techniques, is generally of the opinion it's horseshit.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
The results you're
and
going to
I think most of the people I heard that would, rah this were not people who had to conduct these things. They were sideline reporters kind of thing. Monday morning quarterback kind of thing. So they but there is the culturally those types are more kind of aligned. But I just again I think the work is disrupted across the board. I don't have as good an optic into the collections and operations side of things. So
how about at the Bureau, Mike?
So in terms of your selection bias question, I think there is a selection bias in terms of the people with whom I'm speaking, but it's not the one you're thinking of. Despite the beliefs of the current director and deputy directors of the FBI, we really did not talk about politics with any sort of regularity. The people who knew my political beliefs in the Bureau are the people with whom I were social friends outside of the Bureau, and our conversations were limited to those had outside the building on these topics. I don't think anybody I ever supervised, whether as a unit chief, squad supervisor, ASAC, what have you, ever had the foggiest notion of what my political beliefs in specific were. I found out after I left, most people assumed I was center right, but that was more based on the things I had worked and some of the jobs I had held before
it was
the Bureau.
Based on the Ingmar Bergman stuff and
the Proust and
right, exactly. That stuff all codes right.
Yeah, to the extent I have selection bias on this stuff, it is entirely a result of the offices in which I worked. I was at headquarters during the Mueller special counsel, so I know everybody who worked on Crossfire Hurricane at the beginning was at least a professional acquaintance of mine, if not a social one. Ditto for mid-year exam, and then I was at the Washington field office in the counterintelligence division while others there were investigating the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. So I just crossed paths with a lot of the people who are directly impacted by this. And if they're venting to me, it's not because they think I'm a sympathetic character politically. It's because they worked on this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and Jeff made a good point in the comments, which we have to keep foot stomping, and that is what's going on now and how people feel about it. It's not partisan.
No.
Like, you literally swore an oath to the Constitution. And what I think is just so maddening about the context of and what Trump has done to the context is labeled things as partisan, which are basically just national security, loyalty to the Constitution and the rule of law, and protecting basic American interests. And now that's somehow partisan.
Well, honestly, it is partisan in the sense that, not in the sense that that belief in those things is Democrat, but in the sense that the Republican establishment, in the form of Donald Trump and the people around him, have demanded disbelief in that as a condition of being in good standing in the Republican Party. And
Yeah, absolutely.
so
It's even more craven than that, though. It's not simply that it's politically convenient for them, it's that they are regularly engaged in behaviors that threaten United States national security. This isn't like creating a straw man that they can beat. This isn't like policing language to beat the Democrats over the head. This is literally talking to people you shouldn't be talking to, pursuing business interests in countries whose
this is
goals are
literally
inimical to ours.
meeting with the Russians in Trump Tower during a campaign and saying
Hundreds
that,
of contacts,
you
actually.
know,
Yeah, and it's worse than that. I mean, we're not talking about, like, let's not forget, the first attorney general had to recuse himself from DOJ's largest investigation because he misled Congress about contacts he had had with Russian officials. General Flynn, there is a guilty conviction for him because he lied to the FBI about contacts he had with Russian officials.
Yeah.
Paul Manafort was pretty open
on the
about having
payroll.
contacts with Russian officials.
On the payroll, was he not?
Yeah, the Russians are like, look, we could be as kumbaya as we want, but like, the Russians are not our friends. Like, their interests are not ours. Like, every day they gain influence and power, we lose some. Like, this is insane.
It's an upside down world. It's a very scary world. I think this is getting into something I was going to say. I'll say for tonight's book club, but it's it's an upside down world when you get high level, when you have from a high level, basically a counterintelligence threat. It creates a hall of mirrors environment. And so where, like, if you are keeping your oath, you're also partisan, and you can't win. And no. So I think people that are working, they're in an impossible situation. And I just think.
Speaking of which, wait, you said you'll save it for what, Holly?
The book discussion tonight.
Oh, what book discussion is that?
Aren't we doing the spy books tonight?
Correct. We are having the first meeting of the MARA, that's the Make America Read Again book club, which is the book club theorized on Dogshirt TV, in which we pair a nonfiction book with a fiction book. And we decided to start with John, for obvious reasons, with Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and its companion nonfiction book, Ben Macintyre's A Spy Among Friends. And what time will that be this evening, Holly? 7 o'clock. And if you are...
Is it this link?
It is this link.
Yeah, people are wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, use the same link. Folks, all Dogshirt TV productions, until we change the link, can be found here. So just act like it's a morning show. And if you are not a paid subscriber and you want to join, you still can. Just become a paid subscriber, and the link will be in that sealed off magic bottom of the Dogshirt place, and you're very welcome to join us. Anyway, sorry, with that, for that interjection, you were saying.
I had a question for Holly, because this is something I've struggled with respect to my former colleagues at the Bureau, and I've come up with my own rubric for evaluating it, but I'm curious how you are. How do you approach judging the morality and decision-making process of people who have stayed and on the one hand are trying to get by and have legitimate reasons in their personal lives for doing so, versus their presence sort of at least not throwing sand in the gears of what this administration is trying to do. Because in my own head, I have immense sympathy for agents and analysts at the line level who don't get to choose what they work on, who do get stuck going out with ICE. Like, I'm not really judging them with any sort of moral calculus for going on those raids. I have nothing but contempt, however, for the SES level individuals who have not resigned over this and who think that by making these sorts of compromises, they are somehow saving the organization or the institution. I think that's delusional and enabling authoritarianism. But I'm curious, how do you view your former colleagues in these positions?
Mainly, I mean, people I know personally. I don't know. I don't judge. I don't judge either, because I think it's a tough call. I mean, it's different. And when I left, and actually, I was recently around a group of my former colleagues, and a couple of them mentioned to me the email I sent when I left. Like, I hit send and then I logged off for the last time, and it was this was in December. And it was basically, urging people to, to stand, not be the front line and hold the line. And I know people are trying to do that. I think, but then I also don't have an optic in sort of day to day, like, what are they being asked to do? Is their analysis being changed? I don't know. So I feel like I'm not in a position to judge, but I can see how it goes. Well, like you said, I can see how it cuts both ways for people in higher level things. Like, like, why did the Venezuela? I think because it was Nick, it was a little bit not out of CIA a little bit, although some of those people were CIA on rotation to the Nick. But like, again, like, your chief of analysis on this, like, your people's analysis is being changed or pressured to be changed. And I think that I would expect a little bit more pushback. And again, just if it came to it, resigning or retiring and then speaking out. That's the other thing so I know people who have left, either just retired, not necessarily pushed out. And I've urged, pretty high up people, and I haven't. I am a rare person.
Yeah,
and
Mike.
And I'm a peon, to be clear.
I mean, Mike is the only FBI former who has spoken out.
Yeah. So
and I have begged other formers to do so. And
I'm like, why? Things. You've seen things. People at I'm a peon. I actually, and I worked on issues that nobody gives a shit about. Let's be clear. I saw, I would see intelligence that wasn't compartmented on other issues. But all of the really good stuff and juicy stuff I didn't even have access to that. And I'm like a nobody.
Holly, way to sell yourself as a relevant commentator, dude.
I'm an honest person, Ben. I'm not out here doing ego. So anyway, but like, friends of mine who were high up officials and are now out, and I'm like, why are you not speaking out about what's going on? Like, maybe it wouldn't do any good. Here's that thing. I think they calculate, like, what is it going to matter? Like, what is Mike Feinberg? He's just creating problems for himself. And what difference is Mike Feinberg making?
I don't know. Like, Mike Feinberg got that really prestigious Lawfare Fellowship.
Yeah.
He's sitting pretty.
Which comes not only with a paycheck, but about a half dozen onesies for my infant son.
Nice.
That's right.
So,
Lawfare onesies, they make those?
Yeah, Ben has gotten pictures. If I can find a way to blur out my baby's face, I will bring them to the next show.
Yeah,
but
that's amazing. That's amazing. But maybe they're there's an argument to be made there. Like, what good are any of us doing? I feel like we're pushing back against, a wall, a tsunami, a wall of water, with just our little hands. And, but it's like, I just feel like, and I say this regardless of who they are or whatever. It's like, you have to try. Like every single one of us has to try. I feel like we have to try. Like this is not a joke. This is not like some, era that could just end. Maybe it will. Maybe we'll be okay. But we don't know that. I had a friend tell me like, it's bad, but this isn't like he was challenging me on like how I'm responding to some of our friends, like this is not a CIA, it's a personal friend. And it's and I've have broken relationships, and he was kind of urging me to be nicer basically and like not be as judgmental. And I'm like, look, if this is 1930s Germany, like what would you like? You're at a dinner party and someone who's like, you say, I don't know, I feel like I would say something. And he's like, yeah. But this isn't, come on. This is 1930s Germany. And I'm like, you do not know that.
No, right. And the problem is like, well, I'm not going to get into the comparisons, but like if you've actually studied Germany or Russia or Romania or what have you, like there's similarities. Yeah, I'm not going to say we're at a 5-alarm fire yet, but there's things that should be concerning.
We are on the
if you're
road.
in a 2-alarm fire,
it's still a fire. Yeah.
It's still a fire, and you don't know if it's going to be a 5-alarm fire in 20 minutes.
And if you don't throw water on it, it certainly will.
I am perfectly willing to accept that this is not 1930s Germany.
No, it is not. But you don't know where it's going.
But that's the thing is, 1932 Germany was not 1933 Germany.
Yep.
And 1933 Germany was not Germany after the Night of Long Knives. And Germany after the Night of Long Knives was still not Germany after the Nuremberg laws. 1930s Germany
didn't happen overnight. Yeah.
As Kristallnacht. And by the way, even after Kristallnacht, the final solution isn't started until 3 years later.
Yeah.
So
right.
you're talking about a spectrum of things that develop. I wouldn't say slowly, because the seizure of power in Germany was a kind of shock and awe thing. But you're talking about things that you don't know where in the spectrum you are. All you know is that things are bad and they're dangerous, and you have to treat things like they could get much worse. And that's, I don't know how to express to people who just start with the assumption that we are at the terminal place on the spectrum of danger. How the fuck do you purport to know that?
Yeah.
And can I make a different 1930s Germany analogy that I was thinking of a lot last night when I was up for reasons everybody can guess and browsing Blue Sky? There was a huge brouhaha, at least among my the people that I follow, and as near as I could tell, like a good portion of the site, over the third way list of words that they thought Democrats should avoid using for alienating moderates. And Tom Nichols posted some stuff in favor of this, and I have never seen a reaction online like the one that people responded to him with against what he was saying. And I'm not going to take a position on whether he was right or wrong. I'm just going to point out that I don't think there was ever an election in 1930s Germany where the Social Democrats and the Communists combined did not get more votes than the Nazi Party.
Correct.
Up until the final election. And if you're on the left and you are reserving most of your ire, or not even on the left, if you are opposed to Trump and you are reserving most of your ire and training your fire on other individuals who are also opposed to Trump, you're being a fucking idiot. The only fight that matters right now is the fight for rule of law, the fight for the Constitution. And if you're going after the New York Times for not being liberal enough, or you're going after New York mayoral candidates for being too liberal, like, again, you're being a fucking idiot. Like, this is not the time to be winnowing down the number of allies we're willing to accept in this fight.
Yeah, so just to briefly elaborate Mike's point here, in Germany in the 30s, well, in the 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
the split between the KPD and the SPD, the Communist Party
Yeah.
and the Socialist Party, and the flight from the Socialist Party to the Communist Party. And similarly, there was a reciprocal flight on the part of the right from, you know, monarchist conservatives, even reactionary parties to the Nazis. This polarization plays a huge role in the Nazis coming to power. And the failure to have a united left front, not to mention the what was called the Center Party, which was a Catholic moderate party. If you combine the center, the Social Democrats, and the Communists, that was always a near majority of, and the Nazis come to power anyway because no anti-Nazi front was ever capable of being created. And that is just, you know, by the way, played out in a similar way in the international space later in the decade when, you know, the Allies couldn't come together until Operation Barbarossa. And so, you know, the unite or die thing is real here. And if you're spending your time criticizing people who are, you know, from one perspective or another, on your side on the biggest question, you are part of the problem. And I don't expect you to like them. I don't expect you to be to think that this is anything more than a tactical alliance of convenience for a present time. But don't forget, if you are attacking somebody in the anti-Trump coalition, you are, you know,
Helping
you are
Trump.
enabling.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with you. I agree with you. However, just as a devil's advocate thing, I mean, some of these arguments are about tactics that are effective. So I think the third way thing, that whole spat over the words, whatever, I think third way was saying like these are using these words or you know what or certain approaches or focusing on certain issues is not an effective strategy to combat Trump. So I feel like some of this I agree with you on the in principle, especially on the sort of ideological front, you know, but I do, you know, there is a discussion to be had about what the best tactical moves are and the best sort of strategy to confront messaging strategy. But I think that that is should be, you know, a more of a behind the scenes, like, you know, that should not be the front, you know, the sort of main dialogue that's happening externally. Everybody, you know, should be attacking MAGA and Trumpism first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I'd have two rejoinders to what you just said, and like they're not harsh rejoinders. The first is we don't know what tactics work yet.
That's
The
for
fact
sure.
that Trump won the last election means that like whatever we've tried, it's not really working yet. So we need some sort of like epistemological humility in figuring this out, and that
Correct.
plays to the, and you know, along those lines, tone down the vociferousness with which you disagree with people.
Agreed.
Maybe don't do it in public.
Yeah.
Maybe cut out the cursing, even though I just did it myself. You know, so that's point one. Like, moderate your tone when dealing with ostensible allies. Point two, recognize that there's not going to be a tactic that works. The tactic that works defeating Eric Adams, for example, in New York among Park Slope voters is not going to work in Midwestern purple states. And like, there needs to be a recognition that like we need a big tent, and we shouldn't cast out the New Yorkers who are going far left. We should not cast out the Democrats in Colorado who are trying to moderate their positions, and recognize and accept that they're going to be at odds with each other on some things. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also, I want to foot stomp a point that Mike just made in passing, which is, you know, if you disagree, and I haven't looked at Third Way's list of words. Matt Bennett at Third Way is a good friend, and I think he does a lot of good work. Um, um, but look, if you disagree with their list of words, use the words that they say. You can disagree with them, you can reject it, you can say I'm going to use these words anyway because they're emotionally important to me and they convey what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to speak to swing voters to whom they might and if you think they're wrong, try something else. We're in the let thousands of flowers bloom phase, and we need to be, as Mike says, epistemologically a little bit humble about it. Um, Ask yourself why you're spending your time attacking them, yelling about it. There's lots to yell at in the world. People who are on your side being wrong about something or having the wrong approach is not the right way. Hey, uh, we've already run a minute over. We're going to be back.
Possible.
we've
We're
got
going to be
2
back
hours tonight, so
in 11, or sorry, in 10 hours. We're going to be back. And this is really, between now and then, this is your last chance to be to join the show. We are going to record it and make it available for those who cannot be there live, but only paid subscribers. This is really the one benefit, because we got to keep getting cactuses for Holly and onesies for lawfare babies. Um, Folks, keep the faith. We'll of course be back tomorrow too.